get no satisfaction, said the Most Reverend Michael Jagger in the mid-60s. And he had become ever since the emblem of the swinging 60s, who seemed to have one thing in common amongst all that generation: smiling was illegal. It was the blue look which lasted a decade. Joy. Actually, those stones are still rolling. The one has got lost en route, dead. But there is one interesting bit of information that came out of an interview some time ago. It's what Keith Richards admitted to. I hope I'm not going to die too soon, he said, because I know where I'm going. Does that mean that they got their success from some strange source? Question mark. A question mark that hovers over many a successful person in this world right now. What is joy? And what, if in the last resort, the success is with the one who gives it? The company of you-know-who, forever. Success? So those who are in cahoots with him share some of his elements, and I don't think that joy is the most evident amongst them. You can have, actually, joy in the midst of horrific pain. The martyrs. St. Lawrence roasting nicely and saying to his executioner on the gridiron, "You can turn me over now, I'm done with this side." You can have it also in different forms according to the culture of each saint. Unexpected twinkles in the eye, things that St. John the 23rd would come out with, would make your hair stand on end. And even our own Oxfordian Newman would say things that sometimes took them by surprise. Manning, Manning, I have confidence in Manning, a quarter of an hour after his death. And on would go the saints in their own language. Joy. And joy in the midst of pain can be seen. I've seen it. I was preparing a dear friend for death some time ago. An awful, awful pain, and she would never complain. And just a few hours before she died, somebody phoned, asked us where she was dying from the family, and asked, "How are you?" And she calmly said, "Not great," and died. But she had a twinkle in her eye. Joy. At Christmas time, everyone is looking for joy, and great money and energy is being expended to acquire the same. Joy is not expensive. You can spend a lot of money and time creating it and having it all lost in one almighty explosion at home, where the atmosphere is completely poisoned for the whole Christmas season. Whereas in a monastery there is very little, but the little twinkles of joy which make a big difference. Look at some of the ingredients of simple joy. Just this week I was looking around for one or two simple gifts, and I saw that the golden oldies were still out there in the shops. Monopoly, Cluedo. These were games that you could play not in your bubble on a smartphone or a machine, but together. I say together. Daddy and Mammy and the whole tribe together. And one time in the novitiate, we actually played the whole novitiate, about 5 in formation, with Novice Master. A wonderful game. It was Trivial Pursuits. And at the end of it, one of the novices said, "Who always comes out of that game with a bleeding nose." But it was great fun. And it bonded us together, big time, with simple means. I want to look, however, at a more deep level. It's the question of the grace. For grace gives joy to the soul, and therefore to the whole atmosphere. A graced family tends to be a loving family. Jesus in the midst, and the monastery too is a church where grace has its impact on the whole life. Big, warm, fraternal hugs at the kiss of peace. That means a lot more than big expenditure. But there is more. If one lives this feast for the one feasted, the optic changes completely. And that's what I want to land. John the Baptist, the herald, the forerunner, or prodromos, who was identified by the Lord himself with the prophecy about Elijah. Elijah does come again, he says, but they did not recognize him and did to him whatever they wished. Elijah. Now, just think of what is in common between Elijah and John. They were both taught in the desert by the interior master. We have that wonderful passage about the still small voice, whereas Dominus non in commotione, the Lord was not in the commotion in the earthquake, and it's true for us too. Simple joys with love are much more valuable than expensive gifts without it. And John, losing his parents, who were already aged, taught by that same Holy Ghost in the Judean desert that one can still visit to this day. And we have that in the East and in the West in the monastic life. We have it in a very specific mode in the East, which has completely retained the essence of humility and listening, which we have tended to lose in our modern Western monastic life, because we're more plugged into the modern means. There, they are fairly unchanged, and their tone is that of the reality of man before eternity and glory and majesty. This, the Chotki, the Jesus prayer, is used non-stop. It is repeated and repeated. And the mode, therefore, is mercy and humility before God. Lord, notice, Jesus Christ, Son of God. And then the other pole, our misery. Have mercy, eleison, upon me, a sinner. Which we have just retained a little bit of, actually, in our Western liturgy, notably at the Kyrie. But it's a mode. It's the real mode of man. And if you compare the good that that does to the soul with what we have at last damaged our liturgy with in the West, you'll see a fundamental difference. Our churches will be packed over Christmas, but they will be very noisy. There'll be a lot of applause. There'll be a lot of joy, in inverted commas, a lot of celebration. But will the one celebrated be pleased? It's kind of important, because our liturgy forms us. If you spend 3 hours in utter silence, in solitude of spirit with the High King, allowing him to be master of your soul, one comes out a little bit different, still receptive and in intimate mode with Jesus. If one comes out of a noisy celebration where there's been a lot of human communication, the grace, I'm afraid, will very soon evaporate in favour of the immediate, which is not the function of liturgy. Remember that, my friends, in your choice of Holy Mass this Easter or rather Christmas. I make a little jump. The Lord has given us a few ingredients of joy shared by all members of mankind. Do you know one that we have not lost from Eden, that gives great consolation when well used, and alas, damages us when badly used, and old Nick knows it? Music. Profound beauty and harmony heals. But loud thumping noises don't, and too much of the same contaminate us and make us stressed. There is useful only when used. You don't have to have background noise all your hours on earth. Simple joys. When my brother was courting his wife, he was 21 and she would have been 19, they would happily sing a duet together in perfect harmony. It was spontaneous. Music is the language of love. If music be the food of love, play on, said Shakespeare. I remember in university days, this was in Aberystwyth in the mid-70s, it was Christmas. And in the Welsh Hall, we were all together for the annual Posh Nosh, all in Welsh, with some of the staff present in Patrick Hall, the Welsh Hall, where, by the way, Prince Charles learned Welsh before the investiture. And then, after the formal bit, the speeches, suddenly, out of nowhere, there was, first of all, a gentle humming, and then spontaneously, the whole huge hall caught fire with beauty. About 300 young Welsh men and women just burst into four-part harmony with all the songs they knew from childhood, and it raised the roof. It cost nothing, but was profoundly moving. And my friend who was doing classics with me the following day said in Welsh, "Rhaid ti deimlo fo. Did you feel it?" What? That beauty. It was the future of Wales, and great names came out of that hall since. But we were sharing a fire we received from ancient centuries of which Gerald the Welshman already spoke in the 1100s. Beauty! That's not expensive. It heals and it creates joy out of what the Lord has given us. And that we must claim in the house of God. Why put in pumped music, automatic synthesizers in the house of God? Sing and create beauty in common with the angels. It's the one language that we have in common with a higher power. We never lost it from Eden. Don't look for expensive gifts. Ask yourself, my friend, how can I create joy this Christmas? I will not cause pain. I will find little secrets of joy. It applies to the little people and the big people and everyone in the midst. A warm hug costs nothing, but it's far more precious than a grant.